So.
We got 2 minutes, 15 seconds.
Yep, that's just the recording, that's not live streaming.
Can I ask Brian a question before we get started? Because I don't want to pull something off the consent agenda, but like, is there a way we can find out how much we pay Computer Magic? It just seems like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds that just, maybe we'll figure that out. Like,
Just general, computer, just like annual fixed.
what is that? How much do we annually spend on Computer Magic?
I'll pull it down.
Every month, it's like hundreds and hundreds, sometimes thousands. Like, I just want to know, what are we paying for? And then you got hundreds in AT&T bills. And it's like, can't they be one?
Contract over there. Better get those mortgage payments.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Oh. No, I wanted to.
I am connecting to Facebook just so. We are on Facebook Live.
30 seconds. That works for you, Julie?
Works for me.
Okay.
The latest, well, not the latest, but it's pretty cool. I never was a great typist, so now I can write and converts to text and does all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, I did that. I did class in high school.
I did the same,
Oh, it didn't stick. It really helped me.
Julie, ready to go?
didn't take.
Okay,
For
ready?
me,
Everyone ready? All right. This is a meeting of Village of Sherwood Hills Board of Trustees. Tonight is Tuesday, March 18th, 2025. It is 7 o'clock. Let's call the meeting to order. Julie, can you do the roll call?
President Hines,
Present.
Carol Barford, here. Pete Marvisuner,
Present.
Bob Paul,
Present.
Mark Lederer,
here,
Kevin Murphy,
Here,
and Rob Singh.
Present. Okay, item 3, approval of the agendas. Can I have a motion? Dietmar.
Yeah, so move the agenda as presented.
Thank you, Bob. As a second. All those in favor, please say aye or raise your hand. That's motion carried. Procedures, orientation, statement of public notice. Just want to confirm, Julie and Brian, the meeting's been publicly and properly noticed.
Yes, it has.
Okay. Procedures orientation, just want to remind folks that the meeting is being live streamed on the village's Facebook page. And any comments provided through Facebook may not be considered contemporaneously by us at the meeting. Any comments should be sent to Village Administrator Brian Mooney, bmooney@sherwood-hills.org, and he will disseminate them to the trustees. Item 6, public comments. This is an opportunity for community members to speak to the board. No discussion or action may take place at this time, but trustees may ask clarifying questions only. Speakers may be limited to 3 minutes. Are there any public comments?
Of course there are.
Sam?
When have I never not commented? So tonight, I noticed that we have the governance plan on the agenda. I went and I looked through the board packet to see what we were actually going to talk about this time. There is nothing in there. And so as a public observer, I am blind to what it is that you're going to talk about. However, I do know that there is going to be a proposed statement tonight about the governance plan. And that's fine, as long as you continue to do what you have always done in the past and not publicize it to the public, particularly 2 weeks before an election. This is totally wrong. And John, you know it. So don't try to put out something that's going to try to eventually take out the discussion that Rocky has been putting before the community. A discussion that is long overdue, that only has happened because of what he is currently doing. And we know that for a fact because we have been knocking on doors and people are saying to us, wow, I didn't know. So all I'm saying is go right ahead and do what you're going to do on this governance plan tonight. That's fine, but it should take the typical publication plan that you guys do with all of your meetings. Again, there's no indication in the Nixle as to what is going to be on the agenda tonight. The last time when I said I'd like to see a summary of what's going to be discussed at the board meeting so people can see, oh, there's something on here that I want to be, I was told, we can't do that. There's not enough space. There is plenty of space. All of those Nixles that come to me have paragraphs of text underneath them. So there's no reason we cannot use that device to try to get more information out to the public as to what it is that's going to happen in a board meeting. There has been continual conversation about us not having good communication with the village. And it has come to my attention by people telling me they just think the board doesn't want to communicate with the village. Now, whether or not that's true, I didn't ask them a survey question. All I can tell you is that's what I said, is they really don't think you guys want to communicate with them. So this is something that we need to take up seriously. I have been coming to board meetings for 34 years. That conversation has been on the table since the first board meeting I ever came to. We do not communicate with our public. And that's why we find ourselves in positions where people are getting angry and they get the wrong information. And you got to know that when it goes over the back fence, things are going to change. So that's why we have to have something that is reliable, is not non-partisan, although we aren't partisan in this. Thank you. And please, could you guys all run for president next year? But the deal simply is this. We've done a bad job. We do not communicate with our public. And I am really, really cautious about this governance plan discussion because there is nothing in the board packet to tell me what it is that you are going to take up tonight. Not to mention the fact that it's way down after I have to listen to crosswalks and pools and sewer lines and all those other things that are just so important to me. I love sewer lines. Actually, I do, as long as they continue to work.
They're important. I think we all need sewer lines.
We all need sewer lines.
Sam, thanks for your comment. And just a clarification, it is on the agenda in the notes to the agenda, which is very early in the packet. Brian says, Village President Imes would like to provide an update on the governance recommendations and actions to date. And
Yes.
that's what I'll be doing tonight. And an item that follows. And then, well, you'll get a chance to either watch it or hear it.
Here, the reality of it is that is not enough information.
It's a busy time for all of us. You know, we had the recognition event on Friday. We had the
Yeah, you had the
Yeah.
meeting last Tuesday night where.
We had
heard
the thing
about
on
it in the
Sunday, we had a
afternoon.
special meeting on Thursday, it's a busy time. And then the last thing I'll say is, it also says Village President Imes will review the current status of the village facilities project, so that's on the agenda.
I
as
saw
well.
that too.
John?
Yes.
One comment on that too.
Yeah.
Is you did or Brian sent out 2 pages, 3 pages memo that summarizes your remarks, both respect to governance as well as the facilities, but they're not in the packet because they just came out.
Yeah.
Is it possible to get her a copy of those 3 or 4 pages right
Absolutely,
now?
and we can make.
She'll
that
know
part
what
of
the substance of your remarks are,
Yeah.
and if she wants to leave at 7:05 or whatever it is,
Yeah.
she
Too
can
late
do
for me to
so.
do that.
That, Mark, that's a really good point, and then we can make that part of the minutes.
And it should be
Wow.
part of the packet.
Okay. All right, are there any other public comments this evening? Yeah.
Evening, my name is Tim Vanderhout. I live at 3130 Oxford Road and come to express my support for agenda item D4, crosswalk at Sherwood Boulevard. I am a member of the Public Works Committee, so I know what's going to be discussed. But I'm also a parent and I come to express my support tonight for that crosswalk. It is a complicated, dangerous situation for pedestrians, especially kids. People coming from four corners at high speed, can't really see people until they're halfway across the road, especially children. A crosswalk will hopefully solve that, or at least make it a little bit less of a dangerous situation, especially because I think there's going to be some signage as part of the proposal as well. So people are alerted ahead of time when there might be children present. Thank you.
Thanks for that, Tim. Mark?
Yeah, but just a brief question. I remembered in the packet, I think there was some discussion about whether it was going to be contingent upon receiving approval of the residents for the sidewalk. I think that would go up Oxford Road. I was surprised to see that, I mean, I assume the sidewalk is in the right of way, so you don't necessarily need approval, but just that one point, if you could clarify that.
The sidewalk is not included in the design. It is a future design if the village would like to pursue putting sidewalks on that half of Oxford. So currently Oxford only has sidewalks on half of the street. So
that's not part of the asks tonight, and it's,
that's right. Yeah.
that's fine. That's just, I want to clarify that.
Be a hell of a deal if it was.
Yeah.
It's just paint, right?
Curb,
well,
curb,
Curb.
Oh, it's purple.
And we did discuss with the neighbors that will live on both sides of the sidewalk and are in favor.
Thanks for that, Tim. Johnny?
Well, the real problem is that at 4 o'clock, the floodgates open. Everybody who's cutting through Shorewood for a shortcut goes through Shorewood. They drive fast. Mostly they don't stop at any stop signs. And sooner or later, you're gonna hit a kid. And then everyone will sit here and say, oh, we didn't know. But you all know that they're cutting through, there's certain streets they cut through. They cut through on Oxford. That's terrible. There's a line of people coming through on Oxford every day. Some of them go down Shorewood Boulevard. Some of them take Lake Mendota Drive. Some of them come down Yale. But it's a really dangerous situation. And all you got to do is give a few tickets and the word will spread that this isn't a cut through. You know, but nothing has happened. And so it's interesting that most of the people don't even slow down. They just gun the stop signs. And we've talked about this before, but nothing's been done. The problem continues. You can put all the crosswalks you want, but you really need to slow down that flow and have them drive somewhere else. When they did University, the university talked about how many cars would go to the south and how many would go to the north. So it wasn't a hidden fact. It was something like, correct me if I'm wrong, I think it was something like 900 cars a day each way. It was a huge number. And we're taking the brunt of that. It wears out our roads, endangers our kids. It makes pollution of the village. It makes noise. And you know, I think that problem has to be addressed. And then the crosswalk may work great too, but you know, with the traffic coming through, you need more than a crosswalk.
Thanks for that, Johnny. I see it. A lot of them have the UW tags on the mirrors. So I just wonder if part of it is people got used to doing it during the construction because the construction backups are so bad, and then they just they've continued to do it. So I think it's something worth checking. I do see the officers in the village. You know, I was over by Lake Mendota Drive a week or so ago, and there was an officer parked right on Edge Hill, right where the bridge is, kind of tucked in the woods there a little bit, in a great spot, watching Wood Lane, watching that intersection. And then I walked another 2 blocks, and there was another officer on Lake Mendota Drive checking speeders
There was one
at the same
right on
time.
the corner, pulled somebody over 15 minutes ago.
Yeah, and I know there's some money became available for the red light runners. Some federal money, I think, became available. So the county's doing some things. I think all the municipalities for a 10-day period are really focused on speed and traffic, traffic violations. And so it's a good point. Johnny?
I sat
And then
one
Rob.
night on Shore Boulevard in Harvard, which is the center of our village. I sat there where Charlie built his little bus stop. And I watched, and I would say probably 90% of the cars didn't stop. A lot of them didn't even slow down. I mean, if they're doing that, I know they go on Lake Mendota Drive, I've seen them there, but the center of the village itself is kind of important.
Yeah.
I mean, that's where our school is, that's where the kids play hockey, that's where the soccer takes place.
Yeah.
That's a kind of a crucial intersection.
It's a good point, and in April, it's gonna be cut off again because of the sewer work.
Right.
For a period of time, so maybe that'll discourage them. Rob, quick comment?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, Johnny, that we had Lieutenant Dodsworth from SHPD at the Public Works Committee last week. He gave an update on traffic enforcement in the village, and the police department has heard loud and clear the complaints from residents about enforcement. And he had a really nice update about the efforts that they're doing to increase enforcement. And also, as the police department gets to full staffing, he says we can expect to see additional enforcement. Just wanted to, feel free to look that up on Facebook and watch that.
Thanks for that, Rob. All right, any other public comments?
Well, I have one last one.
Yeah.
Hey, everyone, Kate Olsvig. I'm here tonight in my capacity as a Oxford Road resident as well. And so I just wanted to, +1 what was said by Tim. And I also agree, Johnny, crosswalk isn't going to solve it, but at least it's a starting point. So I'm definitely in favor of adding that. The only thing I would add that hasn't been said yet is that it's also a very common pedestrian path for like dog walkers. Oxford is very commonly used because there is sidewalk on 3/4 of it. And when you cut down, there's like a makeshift rock path that leads you to the actual sidewalk on the other side. For stroller walkers, it's like a total hazard. And for dog walkers, you're cutting through someone's lawn. So I do think something like this, beyond safety, it's just a very common route in the village. Beyond just kids walking from school, it's a very common route. So I would just heavily, say, yes, this seems like a no-brainer, and hopefully we can find the funds for it. So.
Thanks for that, Kate, and looking forward to have you join the board. All right, any other public comment this evening? Anybody online, Julie?
No one has their hand up.
Okay. All right, let's move on then. Item 7, board matters, payment of bills. Mark, do you want to?
I'll make the motion to approve the payment of bills in the amount of $621,138.44.
Second, Bob? Further discussion? That's a big number. Mark?
Yeah, I just wanted to point out the reason it's such a big number is a big payment with respect to TIF 3, the University Avenue project. And I've been working with Julie, and we're going to get a handle on exactly how much we still owe on that, so we can update the projection for when TIF 3 will actually be in a position to dissolve, and the additional tax revenues we received by the village. And so we expect that sometime soon, in the next month or two, as the audit is completed.
All right. Further discussion? Ready to vote? All those in favor of the motion, please say aye, raise your hand. That motion carries. Item 7B, consent agenda. Dietmar,
So move as presented.
Carol, are you seconding?
Sure.
All right. All those in favor, please say aye, raise your hand. That motion carries. Items 7C, ordinances. Item C1, discussion and action, second and third reading of ordinance L-2025-01, chapter 27, floodplain zoning. Brian speaks to this in the packet. There's also a recommended motion. You'll recall we talked about this during the February 25th board meeting. Rob?
Yeah, John, I'd like to make the motion, so I move to waive the second and third reading and approve ordinance L-2025-01, repealing and recreating chapter 27 floodplain zoning of the Village of Shorewood Hills Municipal Code.
Is there a second? Thank you, Carol. Further discussion? Ready to vote? All those in favor, please say aye, raise your hand. That motion carries. Item 7C2, discussion and action, first and possibly second reading of ordinance L-2025-02, amending the zoning code related to the EV charging stations. Brian, you speak to this. In the packet mentioned that the Plan Commission has spent the last few meetings reviewing criteria for permitting EV charging stations by right in each village zoning district. The EV charging station ordinance was recommended for board approval during our Plan Commission's 311 meeting. Completion of the required 3 reading process will add this section to the village ordinance. Do we have anybody here for this, or?
Julie, is Sonia
Tim-
with
Tim
us?
Steve is on.
Okay.
So if you need to speak with them.
Okay, Tim is on, but not Sonia.
Sonia is also here, yeah.
Oh, Sonia's here, great, okay. Sonia
Sorry,
Criso
Sonia.
from Vanderwall and Associates. All right, we have a recommended motion. Mark,
Yeah, I'll go ahead and make the motion, and then if it's seconded, I'd like to speak to it. Okay, so the motion is to waive the first and second reading of ordinance L 2025-02, amending chapter 10 of the zoning code of the Village of Shorewood Hills Municipal Code relating to EV charging stations.
for a second to that motion, thank you, Bob. Mark, speak to it.
Yeah, I just wanted to follow up with Brian with respect to, I'm on the Plan Commission. I did raise an issue for follow-up on this topic at the meeting. The section that was amended in the ordinance applies both to commercial as well as residential permitting. So it's making permitting possible for both, but the language was written such that it applied really only to commercial as I saw it. There was some section language in there that didn't distinguish between commercial charging stations and home charging stations. And I thought that some of those provisions just didn't apply. So it appeared to be that you made a change, an update in the ordinance, in the provision based on that. So was that issue reviewed by Vanderwall, and that's where you came out on that? Is that
We shared
correct?
that following the Plan Commission meeting, the recommendations received at that meeting, sent a revised version to Vanderwall, which confirmed that would suffice, the new version in the packet.
Okay, so there doesn't appear to be then any regulation with respect to residential property other than whatever regulation is in the building code itself as far as setting up these chargers at your home.
Right.
Okay. Thank you.
Dietmar?
Mark, as a follow-up question to that, I guess I'm a bit confused. I appreciate the play-by-play and insight on that one. And it appears to me that the notion of EV charging is a permitted use across all zoning contexts. There's an R1, R2, R3, R4, so on and so forth.
Correct.
So I don't understand your nuance to all.
The draft that was presented at the Plan Commission in the section that was altered had a different sentence. I got to get to the page here.
I believe the point was, as I recall, that the commercial required a universal charging unit, which might not be applicable for a residential application.
Yeah.
So I think, as I recall your comment, that you were concerned that residents would be forced to put in a universal charger when they don't need it. They've only got one type of car.
Exactly. It was section, it's on page 94 of the packet. It's section 12. It was a big red line section, and it read basically electric vehicle charging stations must allow for universal charging capabilities across all models and makes of electric vehicles. And what has been added since the meeting was the proviso, except for single and two-family residences. So it's basically exempted then, as Bob described, from that provision. And so, but I think all the other provisions properly belong to the commercial charging stations. And I don't think, as I mentioned to Brian before, I don't think there are any other regulations that apply to the public other than no building codes.
Understood. Thank you.
Would it be okay? I'm just going to provide an opportunity for Sonia Criso to provide any comments on this. Julie, can she hear that?
Sure, thank you. I can hear you.
Hey, Sonia.
Good evening. I think the summary has covered or the discussion that was just had covered a lot of the summary, but just starting from the top, the goal with this ordinance amendment was to more clearly address electric vehicle chargers in the ordinance. The ordinance was otherwise silent on the matter, so incorporating more clear regulations into the code provides better guidance, eliminates the need for difficult interpretations when issuing zoning permits, etc. So this change created an accessory land use called electric vehicle charging stations and made those a permitted use in every zoning district as an accessory land use. So yes, residential, single family, two family may install these in their garage. They may also be used in commercial parking lots, like a grocery store or any other sort of retail or commercial establishment. And it is correct that those conditions underneath the definition on page 94 are really broadly written, and they mostly apply to commercial properties, although some may transfer to when the electric vehicle charging station is installed in a residential setting. There might also be the voltage and sort of safety standards posted on it as well. But there was just this one clarification that the universal charging station is really only applicable in the commercial settings. And like it was stated, we did not feel the need to require that in a residential setting. So that clarification was made from the Plan Commission meeting. Other than that, I think it was a unanimous support from the Plan Commission, and there were no other changes made.
Thank you.
Thanks for that, Sonia.
You're welcome.
Any other questions, thoughts? We've got a motion by Mark, second by Bob. Ready to vote on the motion? All those in favor, please say aye, raise your hand. That motion carries. Thank you very much for that. Item 7D, new business resolutions and motions. Item D1, discussion possible action R-2025-06, CSM for 3518 Blackhawk Drive. Brian, you speak to this in your notes to the agenda. We were notified on March 5th of a certified survey map. The purpose of the CSM was to combine parts of adjacent lots. I'm paraphrasing there. And the CSM was reviewed by Vanderwall's planners and met the village's ordinance criteria. The CSM was reviewed by the Village Plan Commission again during the March 11th meeting, was recommended for approval to the village board. We've got a recommended motion. Mark.
And we have a motion on the table here. Make a motion to approve resolution R 2025-06 CSM for 3518 Blackhawk Drive as presented.
Or second that motion. Thank you, Carol. Discussion. Bob?
Yes, I have a comment. I looked it over and I have no problem with what Mr. Deegan is doing. It appears as though he's moving one of his property lines to skirt a driveway. Perhaps he's thinking of selling up or whatever, it doesn't matter. The other side, it wasn't so clear, but I guess I'm wanting to talk about what's possibly a bigger issue, and that's combining lots. Because I think about the floor area ratio and where do people get checked when it comes to, they have two separate lots. They combine them. They can essentially build then a bigger house. Is that pretty much the prevailing thinking? Because I know that back when the floor area ratio was developed and people were talking about it, the whole idea of the floor area ratio, as I recall, is that we were trying to slow the building of McMansions. And what is the Burby's property, somebody else's now, but that was 4 lots. And the justification of the owner to build an 8,000 square foot house was, well, hey, we got 4 lots and we should be able to build this. And they were denied, and which I think was, in the spirit of the floor area ratio ordinance. And so we seem to have, I looked in the ordinance and I could see nothing about where we address this, which may or may not be a concern, but potentially you could have someone just combining their lot, just so they can build a bigger house. And is that okay? Well, maybe it is, but, at some point you start rubbing up against the floor area ratio and its original intent. So I just raised that as a bigger issue. It's not specific to this. I'm
Yep.
sure this is for different reasons.
Oh, yeah, thanks for that. Dietmar?
Yeah, I guess I mean, we can talk offline though. A CSM is a pretty pro forma thing to do when you own lots or multiple lots.
Oh, I know, yeah.
Join them. I guess I
Know
don't see
that.
what the issue is, you know, that. So if it's within the zoning code and zoning meets all zoning regulations, that's your right as a property owner to do.
But it
Because I'm
seems
trying to
we-
follow. the
Seems
logic.
we've been inconsistent because we didn't allow the people that had 4 lots and combine them and meet floor area ratio. That was
Yeah.
denied and
I
then,
can't speak to that. I mean,
right.
I don't know.
And on the other hand, we're trying to enforce it, not allow somebody to build something in their attic. I don't know, it seems like there's a bigger issue here maybe that we ought to address.
Mark?
I'd like to make a motion to refer this issue that Bob has raised to the Plan Commission.
This,
We have
it's
a,
not on the agenda,
right,
so I kind of want to, I'm like,
Wait,
sorry
he's,
for warning sign,
Oh, okay, I'll make it next month.
because we're discussing something we didn't tell the public we were gonna talk about.
right, right,
Um,
right. Thanks, Julie,
Fair
for,
enough. Maybe I shouldn't
not that
have-
I
Bring
don't,
us
I'm
back.
not
My
trying to
apologies.
quash discussion, but we
Yeah.
can't.
Yep.
Without it being.
I appreciate that.
noticed.
all right. We have a motion by Dietmar, second by Carol on this motion regarding, CSM. Ready to vote on this? All those in favor, please say aye or raise your hand. That motion carries. Item D3, discussion possible action, pool parking lot phased reconstruct. Did I jump ahead? Oh, sorry, MS4, sorry. D2, discussion possible action, village annual MS4 permit. Brian, you speak to this. Municipalities are required to complete annual compliance and renewals of the MS4 permit. Tim Stevie's on the line from Town and Country Engineering. We'll speak to this year's permit and notable achievements within the prior year. Hopefully, we're going to talk about vacuum street sweepers. But Tim, are you there?
Yep, yeah. Yeah, John, as you noted, I guess the village over the last couple of years here has come into compliance with MS4 requirements. Just for the maybe uninitiated here, or folks who are less familiar, MS4 stands for municipally separate storm sewer system. And it is a framework with which the EPA passes down to the states to regulate storm sewer discharges throughout the country. It regulates all sorts of different things within the storm sewer realm, from how you set up your ordinances, how you do your street sweeping, how you regulate private development, and how you clean your storm sewer inlets, how you clean your catch basins, how frequently. And it essentially tries to get at a framework with which to essentially develop a standard by which municipalities are required to reduce the amount of pollutants that come out of your storm sewer system. So reducing the amount of suspended solids, total phosphorus, and other pollutants that go through storm sewer systems. Gets into a lot of different requirements overall, and it's a framework that's pretty broad reaching, but at the end of each year, or at this time each year, I guess, the municipalities that are within this MS4 framework are required to submit an annual report to that permit. That is what this document is. It's an annual report that says, this is how many lane miles of street sweeping we did, approximately how much tons of material was collected, approximately how many catch basins we cleaned, and other maintenance and utility efforts there. I guess notable items on this report, as John mentioned, the village over the last couple of years here has upgraded your street sweeper and come into compliance with your discharge requirements. That's your amount of total phosphorus and total suspended solids that the village is actually discharging into the environment there. And we definitely noticed an uptick in the amount of tons of material collected over the last couple of years from that street sweeper. You now have a vacuum assisted sweeper as opposed to a mechanical just broom sweeper. That does allow you to collect finer particulates and just do a better job at sweeping the streets. So that was noticeable. Beyond that, honestly, not a ton of updates on this one. You know, there's it's a pretty even keel report and not a lot changes year over year on these types of things. We are expecting, just to put a note in everybody's mind here, the DNR is going to be reissuing another like 5 years of these types of permits, probably this year. And we're expecting when that comes out, there will likely be new requirements to deal with, new things, new activities that might be required there. So might be a couple of more items for next year, but this year was pretty even keel.
Okay, thanks for that, Tim. Any questions? Comments? I took a quick look at the two graphs that are in the packet. I mean, it's a 184-page packet, but I think 110, 111. Tim, if I'm reading this right, with the mechanical sweeper, we had about 23,000 pounds of TSS removed. With the vacuum sweeper, we've got 27,000. So is that 2 tons a year then? Less TSS going into the lake?
Yeah,
going into...
that sounds about right. Yeah, yep.
So that's every year, 2 tons of TSS not going into the lake from the village of Sherwood Hills as a result of the vacuum sweeper. And then about a 20% reduction in phosphorus. I just looked at those two very quickly. I didn't study it extensively, but those two kind of stood out. And we are in compliance now. We have not been in compliance in the past, isn't that right?
That's correct. This is your second year, I think, in compliance, technically in overall practices. So yeah.
All right. We have a motion on this? Martin.
Why don't I put the motion on the table?
Thank you.
To authorize the submission of the MS4 permit.
Thank you, sir. A second on that, Rob. Further discussion? Ready to vote? All those in favor of the motion, please say aye or raise your hand. That motion is approved. You're still hanging around, right, Tim?
Yeah, I got a couple other items here, it looks like.
Yeah, we're moving on with the agenda. Item D3. Discussion of possible action, pool parking lot, phased reconstruction. Brian, in your packet, you mentioned that our pool manager, Dane Sheehan, has been diligently readying the pool facility for the upcoming summer season. And reminded you about the village has received an easement payment from MMSD with $20,000 that was earmarked to help with the cost of pool parking and lot repairs. And you got some more discussion there, so I'll ask you to comment further. We also have a recommended motion, and then Tim is here to answer questions or however you'd like to handle it.
Okay. I can just quickly speak to it, and I think maybe Mark will be better equipped to handle the gist of the conversation here. But in my conversations with Dane, the past few years, the village has been working to fix a problem with the lot that we don't feel can be solved through patching alone. So we're kind of at a point now which requires the village to start thinking strategically about whether another short-term fix is worth the investment, or should we maybe take a different approach to doing the project and doing it correctly, whether that be a phased approach to addressing the parking lot in sections, or adding it to the CIP in the future for reconstruction. But that will still, if we do a CIP version of this fix, in a few years down the road, it's still going to require that temporary asphalt patching, which we know does not work.
Mark, did you want to speak?
Yeah, this has been the history of the lot, is that we've tried to do resurfacing there rather than reconstruction.
Yeah.
And it's continually failed on us. after a very short period of time. There is one section lot where we actually did reconstruction. It's the manager parking area, which is by the dumpsters closer to the front door.
Yeah.
And that is actually held up, I think, very well. But clearly these resurfacing patches don't do it. We also gave an interim easement, a temporary easement to MMSD.
Right.
And that's where all their equipment has been stored, particularly on that west side of the lot, which has further harmed the lot. So we really are at a point where we need to do something. At a minimum, that northwest corner where we get a lot of pooling of water. My impression, Tim, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but that's the worst section of the lot. So I think from my perspective, resurfacing is out of the question. It's a waste of money. So we're talking reconstruction. The total cost of reconstruction estimated by Town and Country is like $160,000 to do the portion of the lot other than the manager's lot, which is held up well. If we went with a phased approach, which is to say we reconstructed part of the lot, but not the whole lot, and in particular that northwest corner, that I understand the estimate is closer to like $50,000 to do that portion. We received $60,000 from MMSD as part of the temporary easement, of which all 60,000 was contributed, I understand, to the capital fund, and $20,000 was identified by the board, approved by the board as dedicated to parking lot repairs. But obviously the 20,000 is insufficient to even do a phased approach. So that's why the issue has come before the board. One of the problems we face is also timing here. The pool season starts at the end of May, but even before the end of May, you've got the seasonal staff coming in for training in the lot. So, come beginning of May, certainly by mid-May, things start to fill up. So that really puts a squeeze and a premium on getting any work done that we want done as quickly as possible, which means we probably need to prove something tonight, and Tim again can speak to this from a timing perspective, if we want to have any chance of getting something done before the pool opens. If that doesn't happen, then we're defaulting to the fall, in which case we have to live with the lot in the condition that it's in. I think that's the major stuff. There was something else on my mind about this, but it escapes me. I'll return to it later. But Tim, could you, because I've talked a lot about this, could you just confirm or correct my history and the facts of the situation?
Yeah, I think you laid it out fairly well there in terms of our knowledge. Yeah, the phased approach, as we kind of been referring it to as addressing that kind of northwest corner there. We did see about a $50,000 estimate on that. Our approach here, since the timeline is so short, would be to get this out to bid to contractors. At this dollar amount, the village needs to advertise this for public bidding. It's not as simple as giving a contractor a call and just getting a couple of prices from folks. So this would require public advertising 2 weeks in a row, and then followed by a open public bid. To turn that around fairly quickly here, I think we would be able to get that open in very early April. And then after that, the contractor would have to hit the ground running. It's not a particularly large scope of work. Overall, I don't think it would take a contractor more than, maybe a couple of weeks to complete. So physically, I'd say it is definitely possible to accomplish all the work and get it done within the time frame between bidding and actual pool opening day there. But it is tight. So, yep.
I had a question, but I'll Bob and then Shabna.
Yeah, I assume from the discussion that this involved no redesign. This is simply using the existing footprint. Okay, my second question is, why would we do this in phases? Is it because of the funding? Because of, it sounds like it's a fairly short project. Is there any advantage of doing it in a phased approach as opposed to getting it done in the 2 weeks that Tim has indicated?
Well, it wasn't in the capital improvement plan for project approval
So
this
it's a
year,
fiscal
so
issue. Okay.
in order to reserve the money, we should go through the process of setting that up in an alignment with the amount of funds that we have available to borrow to keep taxes steady.
And what I figured.
Sean?
I mean, between the options, I would say if you're gonna do it, you gotta do it all, is my preference. But I think it would be very difficult to get it all done before May, and I'm not convinced that that would happen. So my question is, what would happen if we did this in October? Like if we just live with it the way it is this summer, what would happen? We just,
think we just have a mess on our hands, you know, and how bad that is and how bad, how much further it deteriorates. I don't know, and whether Public Works could, you know, be throwing some dirt in there or what, maybe Tim is the guy to address it, not me, but, you know, if we don't do anything and it continues to deteriorate further, is there anything we can cheaply do to get us through the season?
isn't it just
Yeah, you
parking?
could throw some gravel millings, stuff like that. Some other granular materials could be help limp you through the summer there for sure.
Rob?
Yeah, I want to throw out something as well, because we are thinking about cars. But I also want to point out that we do have currently a major bike detour running through the pool parking lot. With the closure of the path behind the pool, that, you know. The quality of the parking lot that the detour route takes is quite poor. And in fact, we did have a village resident who was commuting home through that detour route. I believe it was in the fall, who hit a several inch deep pothole in that section, suffered a rather serious injury that required surgery. And we're about to have, you know, later this year, a bunch of people coming by bicycle through that same section. I would say it's possible that even more people arrive at the pool by bicycle than by car.
Right.
So I know we're talking about the northwest corner, and this more concerns, I guess, the southeast area where the cyclists typically will go either through the detour or to arrive at the bike parking. So I just want to throw that out there, that we have had an injury very recently as a result of the road quality there. And it should be, you know, it should be a village priority to prevent that from happening in the future.
Dietmar, and then Mark.
All right with you?
Absolutely, go right ahead.
Tim, the part of the reason why the parking lot continues to deteriorate is just the soil underneath the gravel, right? That it's mushy, soft, water gets in there, soft pockets. So in this estimate that you throw out there, whether it's phased approach of $50,000 or the whole thing at 160 grand, what's your assumption on undercutting there? Does that come into the equation for that rough order of magnitude?
It does, yeah. Yeah, we're expecting at least 6 inches of base replacement, I would say, throughout the entire asphalt surface there. And depending on the approach of a contractor, if you're able to get, I don't know if you get somebody in to pulverize that small amount, so they probably peel it off. But you might, and if you can reuse some of that aggregate bases or aggregate as additional base, that would be useful. But yeah, that 6 inches base depth replacement could be probably deeper in other spots and shallower in some other spots, kind of depending on, you know, that spot on the northeast corner there where water sits. I'd expect that to need probably a bit more than that 6 inches.
I don't mean to get down in the weeds, but you're still not answering the question of what I'm really after. In your sort of estimate of 160 grand, is there any undercutting? So whatever, a 20 by 20 area of soft area undercutted by 2 feet. Is that included in that or not really? In just your
It
rough
is, yeah,
order?
sorry Yep, sorry if I spoke oddly about that, but that's the way we typically put together estimates on this is that we presume that over the entire surface, there's an average, maybe of 6 inches, maybe of 9 inches of undercut, as I term it, that's replacement of that base additional beyond what would be expected. That would be required on just sort of an average basis there, rather than trying to identify it as a spot repair in advance. We'll identify that in the field and presume an assumption at the moment.
And John, I'll just, one more thing. I know there is no motion that really comes with this tonight, but I think in order to perhaps have a better sense of what we want to do, whether to implement it now, find funds to do it in the fall, or really defer to the next round of CIP to have a market check-in pricing on this. I think it'd be worthwhile to go through the public bid process and have folks respond to it. It would give us the opportunity to make decisions with real numbers. I think that would be, again, my suggestion, because there's no recommendation in this, but.
No, I appreciate that. I had another thought on it too, maybe totally off base, but we'll see. Mark, did you have something
Yeah.
more?
Couple other data points for the board to consider. One is we had anticipated doing a spring financing. There's over $1 million that the CIP indicated we would be raising this year in order to finance the capital projects. The finance committee recommended that project, but shortly thereafter, Brian and I got together and said at the time it didn't make sense, mostly because that $1 million is mostly made up of $800,000 for the facilities study. Okay. The notion was, when we put the plan together last year, is that at this point in time, we'd have hired an architect. The process of working on the facilities in earnest would have begun. It clearly has not. It clearly will not in the next couple months. So the notion now is to defer this financing until the fall, which means that we now have some flexibility to add to the roughly $1 million that we had intended to finance in order to cover this $160,000 or whatever it is that we want to cover. So that's one thing to consider. The second thing I wanted to mention is that Dane sent me today a detailed timeline of the whole MMSD project, when actual things would be done by location. And one of the things I noticed on the timeline was Purdue Street, and it indicates paving Purdue Street, a 2-day project from May 12th to, actually it's all done in a single day, on May 12th. So that means the MSD contractor is going to mobilize to do that work.
That's what I was going to raise.
So one possibility may be to go back to MSD and say, well, you're mobilizing your people to do this work. Maybe you could do additional work. We'd obviously have to pay for that work, but that might make some sense. The other thing the board could do tonight, seems to me, and I don't know all the formality of going through the bid process, but we could authorize the bid, let Town and Country go out and do what they need to do in order to post it. The board will still have those bids come back, and we'll know, can it even be done in May? Does it come under the price that we would like to see it done, and go from there? So if we don't take action tonight, we don't have any options. If we authorize the bidding process, and Brian would have to tell me what that motion would look like, then we have an option in a matter of weeks when those bids come back to decide at that point exactly what we're going to do.
Mark, that's a really good point. I mean, the question I had was, is MMSD done staging on the property? It sounds like they are. There'll be no more staging in that parking area, no more upset associated with that parking area. And they are going to repave the area where the railroad track is. And that, which is more April related, I seem to remember. And then, as you mentioned, Purdue. So, Tim, I don't know if you're in close contact with, the contractors on that, but I think that would be, while we're thinking or talking about going through a quick bid process here, having a conversation to say, here's the scope of work. Is there an opportunity? Because as you know, a big cost with contracts is mobilization and finding time in the schedule and everything else. And if we can add whatever we need to add, and they can, you know, they figure out how much aggregate's got to be delivered or whatever it is, that might be a nice way to piggyback on that opportunity. I see Shabnam's got her hand up. And I'll give Tim, I'll have you respond to that after Shabnam.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Not to make things more complex. I'm not trying to make it more. I actually appreciate what Mark said about the financing because that means we probably do have the money. But from years ago, and this is before my time on services, there was discussions about it would be safer and better for the people who live in that neighborhood by the pool if we switched where the tennis courts are and where the parking lot is. And that was, we were waiting for the time and the money to make that switch. So the neighbors there are not full with cars and there were safety issues. Is this the time to do that? Switching where the parking is and the tennis courts.
That's a big deal and it's not in the CIP, not in the 5-year.
But if you're, I mean, I guess if we're spending this money to redo a parking lot, you could just use the money to redo it.
You gotta put the tennis court somewhere else too.
It would be where the parking lot is. It was a switch.
I don't think I mean, I think it's an interesting idea, but it's not a straightforward one in the sense that then you have all the lighting at night right near the residential properties. I mean, there might be some virtue to have people park in the pool by coming through Marshall Court rather than through the neighborhoods.
Yeah.
But I think it's an idea that would require some thought, considerable thought before.
That's something we could solve in weeks. Or
Too much
months.
to.
Yeah. Mark.
Yeah, John, I appreciate your comment about the approaching Speedway and MMSD.
Piggybacking.
Piggybacking it, but I guess I'm gonna speak here for Brian, maybe on your behalf. I think we need to be careful in following our procurement policy.
Right.
And I think the procurement policy dictates that there's a public advertisement that needs to happen. So just so that we're all aware, that might be an ideal notion in a private business venture, but I think Brian, we have asked him to follow certain policies, so let's try to do that.
Maybe we could do both. I'm gonna give Tim an opportunity to speak to that concept.
yeah, and that Dietmar's thought there is kind of right where my mind was going as well, actually, in terms of procurement policy and just what the village may or may not be comfortable with in terms of approaching that MMSD contractor. The one benefit there, though, is the MMSD contractor is Speedway Sand and Gravel. I would say that they bid on stuff like this all the time. This is their bread and butter, absolutely what they'd be interested in doing, and something that I would expect them to, you know, we've worked with them on a number of projects, and if we were to put it out to bid, I would absolutely be giving them a call, letting them know, like, hey guys, it's out on the street, please put a number on it. So I think we get a number from them kind of regardless, just through a different channel.
Thanks for that, Tim. Bob?
I just have a quick question, Tim. There was a discussion about the flooding in the one corner of the parking lot. And Dietmar brought up this undercutting. You feel that that'll solve this water issue in that corner, having that extra base?
Yeah. Yes, I do. Yeah. I think we'd be able to achieve some regrading up there. One other thing, I guess, that was kind of on my mind here is that kind of came up in the conversation was just the uncertainty of pricing and estimates on this. You know, it is a pretty kind of last minute request out of contractors and quick turnaround. And we're getting a little bit later in the overall bidding season of what these types of contractors usually bid on. So for all those reasons, yes, the pricing would come back to the board and for your review and approval. And it might be all over the board there. To that end as well, the other thought that comes to mind is timing of any board meeting that would occur to consider this as an option. You know, if we were to bid it, open up bids in early April there, ideally to get contracts signed, you would award the work also in early April, depending on when the contractor wanted to get going. But there is a little bit of a timeline in terms of processing funds and other contract items there that if there was it might require a special board meeting, I guess is what I'm getting at.
Yeah, and that's what we would do. We do a special board meeting, right?
Well, the board meeting is on April 15th, which is pretty early. It might be okay.
Yeah,
It'll
that
be
might
a
also
quick-
work, yeah.
I mean, you guys can speak to this better than I can, but my sense is I think we should see what's out there, and if we can get a deal and get the work done, we should find a way to do that. So that's one. Two, schedules are packed, money doesn't make any sense. Okay, then we're gonna make it through those 3 months. And if we have to supplement with some limestone fines or some other things, and to Rob's point, maybe address, better where the bikes are going through, then maybe that's the fallback. That's how I'm looking at it. What are other board members thinking? And then it sounds like if we are gonna do something in Shore Road, we will need a motion tonight. Mark,
Yeah, well, I'll just make the motion, and Brian, you might have to help me here, but the motion would be to authorize the village administrator to seek bids for the reconstruction of the pool parking lot, except for the manager's parking section. Something to that effect. I don't know whether we have to say exactly how far this is going to extend on Purdue. It's a little unclear to me at this point. But I think we kind of have to leave that to your discretion to figure out exactly what the boundaries are of the project. But I would say somewhere between the manager's parking section and Purdue Street, and how that works exactly. But so I guess the motion would be to authorize the village administrator to seek bids to reconstruct the pool parking lot. And leave it at that. That would be the motion. And so you would have the discretion to figure out the exact boundaries.
okay, Bob?
I'll second that.
Okay, Bob will second that motion. Tim, just from a neutral observer, does that work for you?
Yes, absolutely.
We're gonna have a role here as well. All right.
Yeah.
All right, further discussion. Ready to vote? All those in favor of Mark's motion, please say aye or raise your hand. Okay, that motion's approved. Works for you, Brian? Okay. All right, item 7D. 4. Discussion and possible action, new crosswalk at Shorewood Boulevard, Oxford Road. We've had some public comment on that tonight. There's information in Brian's memo. There's also a recommended motion. Rob, do you want to speak to this?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. So the Public Works Committee, one of the members raised this this problem on Shorewood Boulevard. Essentially, there's a lack of safe places to cross Shorewood Boulevard. It's a rather long segment without a crosswalk or something like that. It's also a relatively high traffic road. Obviously, Shorewood Boulevard is one of the highest traffic road in the village. And so this committee took a look at that problem and came up with this particular plan. And essentially, we have a lot of residents, including children trying to get to school, who need to cross Shorewood Boulevard at some point, whether they're trying to get to a house on the other side of Shorewood or to go down Oxford. And so this would solve that problem and provide a safe place for them to cross. I have observed that there are, worn paths in the narrow strip of grass as people are clearly trying to cross the road in various sections. When we had the snow piles, a matter of weeks ago, I noticed that there were chunks taken out as people are trying to, step their way through the snow piles to get to the sidewalk on the west side of Shore Boulevard. So there's clearly a lot of people who are doing that. It's not a particularly safe road to cross because of that curve. So the visibility can be difficult for drivers to be able to see people who are crossing. So what this solution would provide is a crosswalk. It would have signage indicating that there's a crosswalk upcoming for drivers to see that. And yeah, it would provide a much safer opportunity, a much more standardized route, so that when people are trying to get across, they know exactly where to go. That corner is also something that is maintained by the garden club. So members of the committee have reached out to the garden club, and
That's one of my
they
questions.
have an interest in this. They like the design, and they're interested in beautifying it even further once it's installed. The village has also reached out to the 3 adjacent residents, 1 on one side and 2 on the other. And they 2 thumbs up. Everybody is in favor of this. So the cost is $7,000. So I think in your memo, you provided a couple of options. One is we could use some of the general fund money to do this essentially now, probably get started on it, I assume summer or something like that. The other option would be to incorporate it into the 2026 budget, in which case it would probably be done in 2026, I'm guessing. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks for that, Rob. Bob, and then Mark.
Living right there, I would add to what Rob says in that there's really no legal way for a kid to get to Oxford Road. Because if you're at the bus stop at Four Corners, the only line crossing is across Blackhawk, and then you cross Edge Hill, then you're on the south side of the street, right in front of my house. And there's no way for a kid, if they live on Oxford Road, to safely get across unless they go all the way down to Bowdoin or even further than that. Whatever it is, whatever the street is down there. And so I think it's pretty essential we do this. And if for no other reason, it could be put us in a kind of bad situation if somebody got hurt from a legal standpoint, because we have not provided a legal crossing for people.
Mark? 2 questions, one for Rob and one for Brian. For Rob, why did you pick south versus north, the north corner? Right, you're over here on Shore and you're connecting over to Oxford. You could have done it here, you could have done it up above. So, and both those sections of Oxford Road have no sidewalks. To my great consternation, irritation, frustration, when we have sidewalks to nowhere in the village. And that's what we have on both sides of the street of Oxford Road. And that really needs to be remedied. So I think when we think about this, we really should be thinking about what is the ultimate plan for installing a sidewalk on either the north or south side of Oxford. So just what was your thinking about that location?
Yeah, I might want to defer to Tim as to why the south side was chosen. Personally, I did go to the intersection myself, and I felt like as a pedestrian, it seemed like it was the better location. It just felt like a safer place to cross on the south side, but Tim might be able to speak more to that. I'll also just say that the design does include a landing pad, a concrete landing pad on that side, which obviously doesn't have a sidewalk, as you pointed out. I believe that's essentially required by, the guidance from, I assume the feds are responsible for that. So we'll have a ramp with, the textured material for visually impaired people. It is built in a future-proof way so that assuming the village does intend to install sidewalks on Oxford, it'll just link up and it will just be part of that infrastructure. So Tim, would you like to talk about why south versus north?
Sure, yeah, I think the biggest thing with that is just kind of like southbound traffic coming through this crossing. They're kind of coming around a curve as they proceed towards the crossing. And putting this, especially if you're just going to have one of these, putting it on the southern leg here allows you a little bit more sight distance time from that traffic kind of rounding the corner. It does connect up a little bit closer with that existing sidewalk on the south side of Oxford as well. So if for some reason you were able to, you know, move that forward in a future year, we did show a kind of light shaded hatch there, roughly sketched in about where we would think that that sidewalk would go. So yeah, that was kind of the main reason, was just kind of gaining sight distance from those cars coming around the curve.
Tim, I assume we have right of way on both the north and the south, so there's no legal reason why we couldn't put it either place, is that right? Okay.
That's correct,
My
yeah.
question,
The
then, my
property
second half
lines-
question to Brian was, the way the motion was written, that this was gonna come out of the general fund, the interim motion, whatever. I would much prefer that it was funded out of the capital fund rather than the general fund. This is a project that will last multiple years. It seems to me there would be some justification for it. And I also would like to continue to avoid putting any further pressure on the general fund, the operating fund.
Right.
Rather than the capital fund. It also gives us more flexibility as we go to financing in the fall. Again, to take this $7,000 and roll it into whatever we need to do.
Yeah.
So
Thanks for that, Mark. Shabnam, you had your hand up?
I was just gonna say that on the south side of Oxford, there is a sidewalk. And there's just two houses that don't have it. So if you added where Rob is saying, and you put a sidewalk in front of those two houses, it all connects.
Hey, Bob?
Rob, did you say this is gonna be raised, this
This would-
sidewalk itself?
This would not be a raised sidewalk.
So it's, because I made the comment about paint earlier, it's more than paint, it's a textured concrete.
Well, no, this,
We're talking about the ADA tactile warning
Right, the
field.
approaches.
Before you approach the street.
Oh, I see, other than that, on the street, it's just paint,
yes, that's my
Okay,
understanding,
okay.
so.
I understand.
We didn't specifically look at a raised crosswalk, although my understanding is those are about, 20,000-ish.
Yeah.
Something like that.
It'd be a nice speed hump there in front of my house.
That's what I was gonna say.
Yeah.
10,000.
I mean, my reaction to this is you don't wait till 2026. I like the idea of it coming out of the capital budget. Remember last year, I mean, I think we were looking at using $113,000 in fund balance to make the budget balance, and we didn't. We actually added 114,000 to the fund balance, so it was a complete flip. So that, we have the money, so it just becomes a question of how we can do it. I would be in favor of it. We have a recommended motion. If someone would like to make it.
I'll give it a try here, looking at.
Well, wait, hold on. I'm gonna interrupt
Well,
Mark, since it's
I would-
Rob's
I
last
would-
meeting.
Well, I
But
would
it's up to
defer to
you.
Mark just because of the question of where the funding would come from. Does that need to be incorporated in the?
Julie?
Okay, so here's the thing, Brian and I have been discussing.
Yeah.
We can't just make motions to say, yes, we're gonna spend money when it's not in the budget. We have to say
Right.
where we're gonna get it from.
Yep.
We did not have any contingency in the capital fund budget this year. So that's why, because that was our first thought, is we could take it out of the contingency account. And we do not have any, we only have $500 in the general fund contingency because we spent some of that last meeting. And so because our general fund balance is above our target of 25%, we thought that was the most logical place to bring it from. But we do have to specify, if this is not a budgeted item, we have to say how we're funding it. We can't just say, spend the money.
Right.
There's not money. So We have to say where we're getting the money from.
Okay, to Rob?
So I would just say, Mark, how do you feel about the motion of using the general fund balance?
So we're talking about $7,000 here. It's not a lot of money in the scheme of things. So understandably, hearing Julie's concern, I'd be happy if you go ahead, Rob, and make the motion, the optional motion as it's written.
All right, so I'd like to make the motion to approve installing a crosswalk at Shoulder Boulevard and Oxford Road with funding to be provided by the general fund balance.
Or a second to that motion? Mark, I think I saw you first. Further discussion? Julie, that works for you?
Yep.
Okay, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye or raise your hand. That motion carries. Congrats on that one, Rob. That's awesome. Thanks for bringing that one. All right, item 7D5. Village governance. Yeah, I wanted to provide an update. You know, Carol and I and Rob had a meeting a couple weeks ago, and one of the things that was really clear from that discussion was, where's the staff on this? Particularly with the idea of adding policy committees. And Julie was on vacation and got back, and so Brian and I talked Thursday or Friday, it was Friday, about their discussion. I was waiting to hear from them. And you know, as you know, we proposed a 6-month trial for policy committees to improve governance efficiency. But after that meeting on Friday, and we've heard feedback from other trustees. I know I heard from Mark the other day during the discussion we had, and from residents. We determined that the added workload, particularly with the anticipated retirement of David Sykes later this year, would strain resources too much. As a result, we're not moving forward, you know, with that change. I did, you know, as part of this update, just wanted to talk about the governance recommendations and actions to date, and I've sent you a memo that I prepared today. You know, over the past year, we have taken important steps to modernize governance while maintaining and strengthening resident participation in decision-making. Our approach is guided by the strategic plan, which outlines a clear vision, mission, and values to ensure that Sherwood Hills remains a well-managed, inclusive, and forward-thinking community. I won't read all this, but you know, some of the key actions we've taken. We've clarified trustee roles and responsibilities. You know, we're getting software now to help with the budgeting process. We increased transparency and fairness in elections. We moved from a caucus to primary elections to allow greater participation and ensure fair and more inclusive electoral processes. We strengthened village administration. We approved a detailed job description and duties for the village administrator, including hiring and supervisory authority for village staff, with the personnel committee advising the administrator, which is something Carol, you have said that, you know, the personnel committee supports. And I just want to speak to what has been one of the real successes that I've seen is the ad hocs. What's happened with McKenna Park, what happened with lease retention. If this board decides they want to move forward on the facilities stuff, I know Bob, something you and I've talked about having an ad hoc committee for the facilities moving forward. Trustees and residents in focused, solutions-oriented discussions is a really effective model. And I think it's going to be a valuable tool for addressing key issues. In terms of next steps, I just say governance improvements will continue to evolve with community input to ensure that our structure is efficient, transparent, and responsive to resident needs. We remain committed to strengthening engagement, improving decision-making processes, and aligning governance with our long-term goals. And expressing thanks to all the residents who have participated in these discussions. Your feedback is essential as we work together to build a stronger, more inclusive Sherwood Hills. So that was the update I had on governance. Was there any questions or comments? Mark? Make a comment.
I think we need to be mindful of what I call the post-farm park moment. And that is, as a board, I think we like our options. Everybody likes options. We like the other things on the table. We also like data. And because we like data and options, things can sometimes drag on. And sometimes some of the options that we don't really seriously consider, that we're not really going to do, but it's an option. But the public, the residents, can sometimes view it as more than just an option. Their perception of how realistic that option is can kind of get away from us. So as we continue through this process, I think we should realize we've got a lot of stuff on the table here. I know we're not doing motions on these particular issues tonight, but I think when it comes back on the agenda, and I hope it will in the very near future, that we think about not only what we want to do, but also what we don't want to do, what we put on the table, and remove that element and reduce the temperature on some of these issues. I'll reserve which issues I want to take off the table versus what issues you want to take off the table. That will be for another night, but I would just try to focus on both those issues. And I think it would provide some clarity for the residents and perhaps for ourselves as to what we really intend to do here and what is really beyond our reach or really never intended, like the way building in Post Farm Park was. So that's my point. Thank you.
Any other comments? Carol?
Yeah, I would make a couple of comments. You know, following the governance workshop last summer with Funkhauser, we were given a list of things to try or consider. And we have already done some of those things and with more or less fanfare. There's been a fundamental change in the way the personnel committee operates. There have been fundamental changes in the way that the administrator's position is structured now. And those are big. We also, like you say, have the primary now. I think that we were tasked with choosing and assessing for our own case what the best thing would be. And I actually agree with the decision not to implement the policy committees for various reasons that we've been over before. I think that one of the big things that is in front of us, and this was really highlighted at the candidate forum on Sunday, is communication with residents. That was just a really top billed challenge and problem of how to do better with that. So I know that we're getting the website changes going, and I know that we need to have some town halls that we promised. So there's work to do, but I think it's getting more focused. We're getting a little more focus in that regard. So I think it's good.
We've got a communication specialist joining the board as well. Any other comments? Emer?
Yeah, and I don't know that I've got all my thoughts really succinctly stitched together here, but in light of both of your comments, actually all three of you, I think to honor your statements, then what I would appreciate if I were to put on my resident hat is to have a better sense of things that just need to come off the table. I don't know that we've really congealed as a board to say, hey, yeah, this has been talked about, but as you just stated out loud, this whole policy committee thing, to your liking, you don't want to pursue. But I don't know that the voice of the board is really congealed on it. So I think in order to make headway, I would like to continue the conversation, but also have more oomph behind it. Say, okay, here are the recommendations that have been discussed. Let's make heads with nails with heads to them and say, this is staying on or this is coming off. And I think just to get beyond this, otherwise we continue to talk about it. And that's the last I'll say.
Thanks for that, Deep. Shabna?
I just want to second everything that Dietmar said. 100% agree. We don't know where we're going with this. I mean, it's the nice cities on the outside is nice, but the real question that the residents want to know is what's happening to the committees? Are there going to be policy committees or not? And Dietmar is right. We never really talk about it. And so let's make a decision to give people some relief and structure and order and like peace. I thought that at the last meeting or 2 meetings ago, that the 3 of you were going to work on that and bring it.
We did, and that was the reason I made my point, like, we decided as a threesome, where's the staff really on this? And so we were waiting for Julie to come back from vacation and had that conversation, and Brian and I talked about it on Friday, and staff was in agreement. We don't want to take this on right now, particularly with David Sykes pending retirement this fall.
Okay,
It's all news.
I'm not sure I'm understanding. Maybe I'm not hearing.
Carol?
So we're not doing it.
So the question is maybe, what is the appropriate mechanism for communicating status as an agreement? I mean, we don't have to we don't have to pass a motion not to do something, I don't think. So what is the right way that we can all express ourselves together and have it in the minutes that we are or are not gonna do this? I guess that's actually with a question mark. That's a question.
This memo did not communicate that. What I'm hearing is what I'm reading is this is a continuing evolving conversation. What I'm hearing is we're not doing a governance, we're putting this to the side.
Go ahead, Carol.
Yeah, I mean, I think, Dietmar has brought the question, which I think is a good question, of does this continue to take oxygen, or how can we say if we're done with it? Are we done with it? Are we not done with it? Which I think is good at this point, because we've been going over it for months, and it's obviously a source of anxiety, displeasure, confusion in the village. So I suppose that now would be the time to have the discussion, it's on the agenda, and to make whatever straw poll, joint motion to not do something, I guess. I don't know what that would look like.
We can make a note in the minutes that the board consensus is, as long as we're not making an official motion or
Right.
something that's legal and being carried out.
That's right. Mark?
I would suggest we follow the post-farm park moment. We were all in this room and dealt with and the room was packed with residents concerned that we were going to build a large structure in post-farm park to house all the departments. And the board immediately said, we're not going there. We're not doing that. We're sorry we put you through that and left with the impression that we were going to do that. And all the board members nodded their head and just said, we're all of one mind. We're not doing it. And that's how we dealt with it. And it was over. And that's what I would suggest. We just identify specifically what is coming off the table. And then say, yeah, we as a board agree it's off the table.
I'm going to say Dietmar and then Bob.
Yeah, so let's start there. My sense is, agreeing with Carol on this, policy committees is off the table. That's my consensus. Let's take a straw poll on it.
Anybody disagree with that? We all agree with that. Here's your chance to say you'd like a policy committee, you want it on the table, you want it discussed. I don't hear anybody saying.
I hear sign, but I need to go to Bob.
Thank you. Well, I think this governance, when I look back at this whole governance issue, I was first on the board and this came forward and it seemed logical. that the village had not really self-examined its governance structure in 100 years, and that, maybe this is appropriate to look under the hood once in a while and see if there's, if there are any problems or anything we can do more efficiently. I think Carol has pointed out that there's been a lot of sentiment out there that people didn't think this was a good project. But I think that we did get some good out of it, as Carol had indicated in her examples. I think somewhere along the way, we got talking about this and implementing this policy committee, which was always just a recommendation by Funkhauser and Associates. It was never, you got to do this. It was, here's how I would do it if I ran your place. But it's up, and he said it many times, this is up, you can take some of this, none of it, all of it. And I think somehow along the way, people got the notion that we were gonna do this, that this was an absolute. In my mind, it was always just a discussion. But somehow it got brewing out there that this is the direction we were going. And I, for one, have never been convinced that we should do it. I was willing to talk about it, and I think it's important to talk about these things. And I suppose we got talking about it so much, it seemed like we were on the track to absolutely do it. I'm really, at this point, it hasn't been proven to me that this structure, as I said before, in theory, it looks good, but in reality, I just can't see it happen because I haven't seen a scenario played out where all these policy committees are going to be more effective, that they're going to take less staff time and all of that. And I've said it before, I would advocate for a more bottom up. Let's look at our committee structure, see if there's ways we can come up with efficiencies there. If from that bottom up approach, some of the governance recommendations fit into that, then let's utilize those. But I think that the residents feel like this is a very top-down, oppressive approach to things, and that's not what we intended. I'm not sure that is a reality, but it's the way it's perceived, but I do think a bottom-up approach would be a better way to go.
Thanks for that. Rob?
Yeah, I guess I have several points. So one, to what Carol was speaking, when we did the working group, my understanding is we were going to ask the staff to try to visualize what it would look like to follow the policy and advisory committee. And are you saying that you got feedback on that, or because this memo states that you got feedback on a trial period and that was definitely a no? But so what is I guess Brian could answer this as well, but what is the staff feedback on the workload of our current system versus an advisory policy system? So I guess that's kind of, why don't we start there?
Fair question. Brian, do you want to speak to it?
Sure. I think depending on the staff member that you talk to, I think the overwhelming consensus right now is that staff is at max capacity with the current structure. I think we have the ability to handle slight pivots when we have needs related to what we have been doing related to ad hoc committees. We're about to end a few ad hoc committees, and I think that's the right time if we're thinking about potential of creation of a new committee of a similar nature. That would be the right time. With David Sykes' announcement that he intends to retire at some point later this year, we will be in a situation very soon where we potentially are going to be losing a staff member that runs at least 3 committees right now. And we're going to be potentially training a replacement with existing staff. I didn't feel like in good faith I could make a recommendation that this would be a good time to add a new layer of governance for staff to oversee, run minutes, run nighttime meetings, depending on how that was structured. So for speaking, I guess, more holistically from the department or the administrative office and department head team, I didn't feel like the pulse was there to support this now. I can't say that we won't be in a better place in a year or something, but I think right now we're pretty much at max capacity. I don't foresee that changing either.
Yeah, I
That
guess.
answers, yeah.
I mean, I guess what I'm looking for is, you know, we're comparing two different ideas. One would completely replace the other. And so with that committee structure where we're going from, say, 10 committees down to, you know, essentially I think it's three advisory committees.
Three primary, but the advisory would still stay. It was a little bit less advisory.
So there's a lot of math that needs to be done here. And that was my question is someone needs to do that math to figure out exactly, is this even doable? Will it be further increasing the workload of the staff or will it be reducing the workload? Or will it be the same? That's what I don't know the answer to that. So I guess maybe we don't know the answer to that tonight. Is that basically fair? So,
Yeah, I would say, I mean, if you look at Julie's calendar, it's really full. When you look at all the different committee meetings, and it wasn't like a bunch of committees were gonna come off and have room for this trial period, even for the, you know, for the policy committees.
yeah, I'm just,
Right.
I'm not even thinking about the trial period. I mean,
Yeah.
from my perspective, the trial period, while a good thought.
Yeah.
A little closer inspection, it seemed like it was never really gonna work, just with. Yeah, the insane workload that would provide, but.
Right.
If we transitioned immediately, you know, to. An advisor, that's the question I wanna know, is it even doable, what was proposed? So, I guess we'll have to say that we just don't know the answer to that right now.
The only thing I can say is that you have to have discussions with staff and you have to listen. And it was clear that the timing is not right. Certainly there's a lot of concern that's been expressed in the community. I mean, I've heard it.
Yeah.
But, you know, Julie's time, David's time, Brian's time, I mean, we do a lot with a little. And so without having it completely fleshed out and thought through, you know, there's must-haves and there's nice-to-haves. And it just didn't seem like this is something that, you know, should be a top priority.
Yeah, okay, so I'll go into if I could just have a couple more points to
Yeah.
go over. So I guess my second point is, like Bob, there's modernization that should take place. You know, Bob and I were chairs of Public Works and Public Health and Safety. There's an incredible amount of overlap between those committees. PHS, its role has changed a lot since we lost the village EMS. And there are other committees that, you know, will meet monthly. There are other committees that meet, you know, might go 4 or 5 months without meeting. So I think there's some consolidation that could happen. You know, certainly Parks and Recreation.
We don't get along.
It's worth giving it some thought because there is a lot of crosstalk between those.
I think
So
there's a better
modernization-
chance with the former. Sorry to interrupt, Rob, but go ahead.
So modernization should take place.
Yeah.
You know, I still think that we should consider this structure because I think there is a lot to be gained, and this kind of transitions to my third point, I guess. So I appreciate, Mark, you bringing up the post farms because that should be a warning to all of us. But the one thing about the post farms was, you know, I greatly enjoyed hearing from the residents about that. But much of the feedback, much of the emails that I received was based on misinformation. You know, there were people thinking that the board was going to be voting that night to build the village hall on Post Farms Park. When in reality, that plan was a slide in a slide deck provided by the,
FGMA.
FGMA.
Yeah, thank you. That hadn't been, reviewed or anything by the committee. It was something that they prepared in advance for the committee. And I think that this is a little bit of a different situation. I think that this committee structure does have merit to investigate and discuss. It's not like this whole crazy idea of putting Village Hall on Post Farm Park. I think there are merits here. I know that there are some residents who are very concerned. And I appreciate that feedback, and I of course listen to that feedback and I consider it. I think that a lot of residents probably don't know which committee structure is better. They may have no preference whatsoever. And it's up to us to figure out what is the best committee structure for the
Us?
village.
Us? It sounds like an exit interview to me. Who's this we business? That's what I want to know.
Mouth in your pocket?
I think what I was talking about is tabling the issue of policies. We're not saying we're never going to innovate again. We're never even going to consider that idea again. All we're doing is we're saying we're taking it off the table. We got a lot else on our plate. There may be other innovations in governance that we will proceed on. But we're not we understand that the temperature is where it is on this particular point. It's gonna take it down a notch for a while. That's my spirit.
We're gonna go to Shabnam and then Bob.
Something should come out of this. $40,000 is a lot of money to spend. Like, we could have done we knew to do the caucus because Aaron Clune had brought that information 2 years earlier. We just ignored it. We should get something out of this materials. Services under Sharon had no role. So that's something that either give the services committee all the things that it should be doing back, or combine it with public works and public safety. It's an opportunity to do that. Like, there used to be conversations on trucks and equipment and materials that needs to be purchased. All of that is now with Brian and DPW. Services wasn't involved in the RFP for FGMA and is not really doing much with the facilities anyways. And that's something that's been on my mind, is like, I guess I would have thought that services would have been doing the pool renovations or all facilities. We've kind of shifted from that a bit. Like we did the Four Corners renovation for the bathrooms, but that's something that parks could do, or that's something that recreation can do. So it's either put this stuff back, or it's an opportunity to consolidate.
Good point. Bob?
To get to Rob's point about, maybe we should look at this data a little closer. I wouldn't say that necessarily we need to bring the temperature down. I just think we need to stop and look at the reaction we've gotten from residents. And I think what the vibe I'm feeling here is that maybe we've taken this a little too far. I don't think just because we spent the $40,000, we should somehow, that should push us to take every idea in there and run with it. I think, as Carol said, we've gotten some out of it, maybe not as much as we had hoped, but that's always the case with recommendations from consultants, is that some of it you'll use, maybe not all of it. Sometimes you get better bang for your buck and other times you don't, but I kind of feel like we probably, if we're saying we should table this, take the temperature down, recognize what the residents are telling us. I think recognize what we all kind of feel some uncertainty about this, that we ought to just put it in the back closet and close the door on it for a while. And if we need it, it's there.
Well, my reaction to it is I don't think it was a waste of money. I mean, it's always good to have an objective look at what you're doing. Carol spoke to some of the changes that have already come out of this. you know, we treat the administrator quite differently than we did, you know, a year ago. And my, you know, my memo kind of laid out some of the things that we've already done. To Rob's point, I mean, whoever the village president is, you know, moving forward, they're going to be in a position to fill, I think there's 24 spots that come up in 2025, committee spots. Not to mention, you know, where trustees are going to go. We've got a new trustee coming on. And so there was some good nuggets in there about trustees recommending committee members for advisory committees. Remember that? You know, as you, rather than, you know, what, yes, the village president has the power right now to appoint everything. But, you know, my practice has always been to check in with the committee chairs, to try to, you know, take the temperature, you know, what folks are showing up, what folks are really engaged. You think they really want to sign on for another 3 years, actually having those discussions, or trustees are cultivating candidates for committees. And so that was brought out in the recommendations. And it's something that, you know, I, as, you know, just in my position, I thought a little bit differently about how I might go about populating those committees moving forward. So I think it's always a good, you know, we supported this as a board. We've gone through a really good process. There's a lot of nuggets here, and a lot of this relates to the strategic plan. And a lot of it relates to the communication strategy going forward. So my only caution is don't throw the baby out with the bathwater here. I'm totally comfortable saying policy committees are off the table. If that's the direction the committee wants to go, or the board wants to go, I could support that. But there is a lot of good here, and I don't want to lose sight of it. And I want to make sure that we kind of reach back to it and look for opportunities to improve our governance, improve our efficiency as a body moving forward. Dietmar?
So is it fair to say, and I think everybody spoke about it in different ways, but I still believe that we need to walk out of this with at least some distilled direction in all this, that I'll speak for myself, policy committee stuff is off the table. You're supporting that. John, you just said it out loud. You were raising your hand, general nods, that there is also maybe, that there wants to be a push to perhaps reconsider what committees still have value, add value, and which ones don't, or which ones could get consolidated. Is that a good, fair next step for the next board that could be seated, that would be seated to consider?
Yeah, I think we would need specific motions to that.
I get it.
effect,
I think I'm just trying to get the message out there to
next
folks
time
that are watching, to folks that are in the audience, to sort of get moving on. Is that?
Yeah, and I would just suggest that if we planning on doing a lot of changes, if the motion is a lot of change, that what we may want to say is the board is considering this, but then at the town hall meeting, make sure that there's, if I want to suggest we're going to consolidate 33 committees and we're going to and we're going to move all this stuff around outside what we normally do in April, that we ought to say we're going to have a public comment period before we actually implement that, so that the public doesn't feel left out. But
And if
otherwise,
you
I
indulge
agree.
me for one more second, let's jump off that. I think we need to be better about it, to have a quarterly setup of town halls. I know we had one, we've talked about a second one, timing hasn't really worked out, but I think we need to hold ourselves accountable and say, this must happen. Here's a sequence. New board is going to get seated in April. Let's develop a timetable. Here are the times that town halls will happen. Is that a good goal?
Yeah, I think we go into the town hall meeting on governance and we say the board is proposing.
Mark, I'm just talking about setting dates. Let's make it a priority to set dates, get on the table.
Maybe we shouldn't call it governance, just to not confuse everybody.
Rebranding, Bob?
Well,
What a
I'm
good
just
idea.
wondering if, I'm sorry, I went out of turn.
That's all right. Shabnam, and then Bob, if you have anything.
Well,
more to add.
to get to what Dietmar is saying, I agree, put in the quarterly town halls, have the dates firm, let's try not to change them. And every single trustee doesn't have to go to every single one. It's just to solicit feedback, give people a chance to be heard. We can write down the notes. If 3 people come, 4 people come, it's fine. But if it turns out that we're gonna reschedule and reschedule and reschedule, you just lost the whole purpose of it. So to confirm what Dietmar said, just put in the dates and don't change it.
You know, I think that's fine. I think we just had a town hall for the rec committee for, you know, McKenna Park. That was kind of a big deal. So these quarterlies would be on top of the stuff that we're doing
The purpose
for
of the,
facilities moving
Well,
forward, or?
but the quarterly was no agenda. Just tell me your thoughts.
Okay,
We're
we
listening.
might have to have an agenda on some of our.
I'm not so sure about that if there are no decisions, if the board says we will make no decisions.
It's like a retreat.
We need to look into that, but I
Well,
think we'd have some latitude.
there's public notice issues
can-
as well.
Well, We did this before. I think we noticed before a town hall meeting saying there would be no decisions made, that it would just be discussion, and that was that.
We will, yeah, well, we'll see if I'm in a position to help with that discussion, but, this body would decide what, if any, if topics need to be part of the quarterly town halls. But the point I'm hearing here is, let's set dates. So it just becomes, people know it's always going to be the 3rd Thursday of March. And just bit, something that doesn't conflict.
We can set
That's
the
something-
agenda down the road.
That's something I
Yeah, I agree
support.
with that.
Bob?
This is more directed to Dietmar, but would you think an ad hoc committee would make any sense in this situation, that, and maybe the role or the goal or purpose of that committee would be to review our existing committee structure to see if we can find any efficiencies by this combined, or you think it should happen at the board level? I almost think a focus committee would then people that, the residents that are concerned about this they can go to that committee meetings perhaps, and then that committee can make recommendations to the board. We think, services is obsolete, or that services should be combined, as you said, with other committees, and just take a cursory review of all the committees, not with the intention of eliminating anything, but just to review it. Can we find any efficiencies which will help from the staffing standpoint? We're not holding meetings, and not to reduce any input from the residents. Just again, looking under the hood, can we find any efficiencies here? Doesn't mean we're going to do it. Collect information.
Thanks for that, Bob. Shabnam, or
Could I
go ahead, Dietmar.
respond?
Yeah,
So
go ahead.
Bob, to your question, my motivation is to really just get this board moving forward. So I think we just did, we're doing it now by conversing about it, by talking about it. And people are watching, they see there's a general consensus of what is happening what is likely to happen to the committee structure, or what's come off the table. That there is a renewed effort to start setting dates for town hall meetings. That's the only reason why I'm pushing this, is to kind of get this train moving forward in a direction.
I agree.
How we get there, ad hoc, not ad hoc, board, next conversations, but let's get at least into the starting blocks.
Just a suggestion.
This has
Yeah.
been a good discussion. I don't want it to become too long of a discussion. So, Mark?
Okay, so it's a motion, I'd like the board to consider, wrote it does my way in here. To adjourn all regularly scheduled board meetings no later than 2 hours following the public comment period. I think part of the problem here is, we don't set timelines for ourselves, and we don't force ourselves to operate sort of under the clock. And I think if we said we're gonna get our work done in 2 hours, and if we can't get our work done, at that point, the discussion just doesn't go on. What happens is someone has to make a motion to say, no, I'd like to extend the meeting, and if that's seconded, the meeting's extended. I'm not looking for a decision on this tonight, but I think if we did something like that, it would not only be good for our efficiency, but it would be good for the public. So
I appreciate that, Mark. We're both veterans of 5.5 hour meetings.
Yep.
And I think
not
for the
good
most
for
part,
anybody.
you know, there, even as you had mentioned earlier in the meeting, we have a lot on the agenda. I think we were perking along here. We've had a little bit longer discussion on the governance, and we're gonna truncate that and maybe get out of here in 2.5 hours or maybe less. So, food for thought. Shabnam, did I see your hand up?
Well, I'm gonna bring it up for future agenda items. Let's move on.
Okay.
It'll come back later.
Okay. All right. Anything else on governance? This was,
Motion, or are we gonna?
We're only in discussion.
we're only in discussion.
Yeah, I thought we kind of reached consensus. We were
But
doing
there
it
is
via the
consensus.
postponed part
And that can be
consensus.
reflected by Julie in the minutes.
What is the official consensus? We've had a lot of discussion.
Mark,
That
I
they,
guess that's what I was looking for.
that the creation of policy committees has been tabled. So,
I think it's off the table. Is what I would say. It's off the table.
okay, off the table. I'll take
we
his.
got consensus on that.
And that,
Consensus is that the policy committees are off the table.
And Julie, my
Creation
mem,
of Policy committees is no longer being considered.
correct.
correct.
And that the
Okay, 'cause I don't want to
consensus,
use the word table
Table.
because that's got certain.
Right, that's exactly right. That's exactly right.
and the consensus is that with the new board, that board will take on the task of reevaluating the committees as they are right now and see if there could be any efficiencies gained, consolidations, so on and so forth.
Thanks for that, Dietmar.
And then I think the third consensus is that the next board should set dates for quarterly town hall. And hopefully that's crystal clear for those that are
That
watching.
was good. And Julie, you'll include my memo as part of the minutes. All right, ready to move on? Thanks for that. Item 7D. 6, discussion village facilities project update. Just for everyone's benefit. Obviously, we met on this. We had a special meeting on Thursday at 8 o'clock at night, and got through that meeting pretty quickly. I put this memo together just as kind of a current status of the village facilities project. We're taking a phased, cost-conscious approach to address aging municipal facilities while ensuring responsible investments in our future. This is not a large, unnecessary building project. It is a careful, strategic effort
This is.
to modernize essential spaces, improve efficiency, and strengthen village operations without placing an undue burden on taxpayers. So I won't read the whole thing. But on Thursday night, the village board authorized the village administrator to sign Tom Deegan's space program validation and the preliminary agreement to assess the space needs of village departments. This is the first step in determining how we best utilize our existing facilities. So that phase 1 is now underway. Deegan will work with village staff to evaluate space needs for each department, and a summary of those findings will be prepared within 30 days. Phase 2 would require additional board approval. If the board decides to proceed, this phase would focus on a preliminary site design study for the fire station DPW facility to explore the feasibility of consolidating departments at the firehouse site. We also had a firehouse site evaluation in progress. Brian and I and and Bob and DPW Chief Terry Henschke recently toured the firehouse with representatives from Potter Lawson, architectural design firm, and their construction remodeling contractor. The goal was to assess whether consolidating departments at the firehouse site is a cost-effective and practical solution. Space needs summary from phase one will be shared with Potter Lawson to gain further insights on that feasibility. We'll get a couple points of view on that. And then further board review of contractual engagement. The board will determine whether an additional firm needs to be engaged for any contractual reviews or planning efforts, depending on the scope of such agreement. A formal bidding process, I think, will likely be required. Potter Lawson has indicated they may offer limited services at no charge to the village, but the board will fully review and decide on next steps before moving forward. And I've got some other key considerations that I've raised previously about leveraging village assets, avoiding costly short-term fixes, the opportunity with federal state grants, that our bond council has confirmed that the phasing financing approach is affordable and fiscally responsible, and that this process is going to prioritize resident engagement, transparency, and responsible financial planning. Engaging the residents, ensuring any development supports the village priorities that we've laid out, whether it's the sustainability plan, the strategic plan, University Avenue Corridor plan. And then I've highlighted the next steps. Response to that, comments, questions, Bob?
Yeah, well, it's a little hard for me to digest this when I've just gotten it. I think that our little padre or group should have a chance to review this, and if we're all in agreement with what you put together, and I do appreciate you putting it together, John, it just took me by surprise here. I think it would be good to get this out to Nexel and to have the public be able to read it and get some feedback. I think it's a nice synopsis of what I've heard, but I need to look at it more carefully.
No, I can appreciate that. Obviously, we had a special meeting on Thursday night. You know, Friday we went into recognition. Sunday we had this, and it was like, boy, we should at least have a memo that kind of speaks to this, rather than me just kind of waving my arms. So.
I think I know you're well intended, but I think sometimes the stuff that comes in at the last minute.
Right.
We don't know what's going on. Certainly the residents don't know what's going on, and it feels a little forced sometimes. So I just, maybe it should have gone to the committee first before coming to the board.
I think it was a timing thing because the action happened on Thursday night. I mean, that was my reaction to it. It was like, because the other part of this is, oh, they're doing special meetings to deal with this and not doing it in a regular order.
But
So,
it didn't, I think what Bob is saying is, it didn't have to be on the agenda today. You didn't have to say anything about it today if Bob and I weren't a part of writing the memo. It does take me by surprise when I see something about the facility site study and I start figuring out, what did I miss? There were emails back and forth, and that's all he's saying, and I agree with him.
and I don't disagree with it. I just felt like we took action, and it was just, I heard from residents that was like, okay, you're doing special meetings. I felt it was necessary to update the full board. Well, the full board knew, but the full community about the action that was taking and where we are on some of these steps. Brian and I discussed it when we put the agenda together on Thursday, Friday.
Yeah.
And we said we should probably have a placeholder in there for facilities. So that was our reaction. We just didn't have the time. Mark?
Yeah, I appreciate the information, but it also raises some pretty serious concerns on my part. And that is, at the last time we took this up, we agreed on a process. We entered into a contract with Tom Deegan for specific services, okay? And who was Tom Deegan and Brian Mooney to report to? To the board, okay? So at that point, in my mind, there was this informal discussions, informal committees or grouping of trustees going in and soliciting information and talking to Potter Lawson or whatever. That rubbed me the wrong way because I thought we had a straightforward path. After all this discussion and talk, we now knew how we were going to proceed. And it was Tom Deegan, that agreement, the letter of that agreement, phase one, come back to the board, do phase two, come back to the board. That's it. Nothing else. And that's what, so I really think that, to me, that's the only thing the board agreed to do. And that's what we should do. That's my
Well,
2 cents on that.
I've enjoyed my time on this project, but I wouldn't mind if somebody else took my spot. I'm not copied on emails. I don't know what's going on. I don't know that, I don't want to be on a project that I'm not a full member of that team. So I'm happy to step off of the facility site study. If somebody else wants to take my spot, you're welcome to take it.
I think the facility
You're-
site study is kind of, that phase of it is done. The board took official responsibility in that agreement with Tom Deegan. And the board has, if the board is gonna, individual members are gonna go off and do things with different contractors, it's confusing the hell out of the staff as to who they're reporting to, who they're accountable to. And I thought we got beyond all that, but now I realize we haven't really. And I just think we really need to be clear that our way forward is the agreement with Tom Deegan. And when that's done, we'll figure out the next step. But there is no other body than the board, which means we all participate equally in where we go from here.
Mark, I don't disagree with you. I think, and the thing with Potter Lawson, that happened a couple weeks ago. But the thought was to have a second opinion on this, particularly if it's no cost. It's something that's gonna benefit the village. So we
It's
should.
well
we should
intended,
take
I
it-
understand.
We
that. I'm
should
not
take it, we should take
criticizing.
advantage of the opportunity. It's part of our fiduciary responsibility to not just focus on one.
But I think we should do that after we get done with Deegan. And when we're done with Deegan, then Potter Lawson, I don't know who the contract will be. I don't know what the next step will be.
Yeah, I don't
We're
either.
waiting for the
Right.
data.
I don't disagree.
Okay.
John, I think that it's not whether or not bringing Potter Lawson is the right thing to do. It's this process. And I think what Mark maybe is getting at, and I believe that, and even having this cadre that was kind of put together, I felt a little uncomfortable about. I would rather see an official committee. Then we have, and we know who's in charge, who we have one voice. And whether that's a committee of Brian with some advisors, or whether or not that is a ad hoc committee, that's a facilities committee headed by whoever and membered by whoever. And all information flows in and out, and that's it. And that way it's clear. And then we bring to the board recommendations that can be voted on. It seems like we're going about this in a very obscure way that is only creating confusion. And I know you're.
We're all
You're trying
feeling it.
We all agreed though at the last meeting as to what the body was, that it was now took ownership of this project.
Yeah.
And it was the board. That's what it said in the agreement, right? That the village administrator and Tom Deegan would report back to the board. And the board would then decide, are we happy with the space allotment? If we are, go forth to phase 2 and so on.
And
So, but if you don't want it to be the board, we could take official action and create a committee or identify an existing committee. But we can't do that unofficially. We can't get involved deeply and unofficially because we have tasked Brian, we've tasked Tom, we've entered into agreement.
Mark, you've made your point. I appreciate it.
And-
But we decided,
If
Hold
I
on,
might
Bob.
speak for a minute, I think you did the right thing, but you also had thoughts about proposing an official committee. And that's too bad that didn't happen, because I think that might have been step 1, and then the thing with Tom Deegan, step 2. Now that we're in this position with, making a motion for Tom Deegan, let's go ahead. And get that task done, but maybe we ought to think about something more formal to keep the lines of communication more clear, more
Structured.
transparent, more structured.
Yeah, and I have no objection. I have no objection to necessarily creating a committee. All I'm saying is we created the process. I mean, I suggested a process, which was this informal
Right.
group and all that. But that's not where the board ended up. That's not what the board officially approved. It approved the Tom Deegan agreement and that process. So I'm not trying to foreclose creation of any committees down the road, but all I'm saying is at this moment in time, my understanding is the committees are out of it. We created an information path and accountability to the board. And if somebody
can I
wants to
add-
put a motion to change that,
Here's what I'm gonna add. We're gonna stick with what we've agreed on. We're gonna wait for Brian to bring back Deegan's results. If anybody is doing something on the side, if you wanna talk to Potter Lawson, that's fine, but it's not a part of this project at the moment. We're just waiting for a response.
Right now,
There's nothing for us to talk about right now. We could just go to the next item on the agenda.
my focus and what I have been working on since our meeting is coordination with Mr. Deegan to set up appointments to speak to the respective department heads that he would like to interview to help facilitate a more accurate and appropriate space needs for a village facilities project. So my goal from here is to work with him, try to get this ironed out so that it can be brought back for the April 15th board meeting. And then we'll resume the discussion and have a better idea of whether we're gonna begin phase 2 of his agreement, or we feel like we have enough information to make a educated decision on the next steps regarding this project.
All right,
Yeah, and my reaction to this is at the board level right now. And if we decide as a body, we want to change that, we will change that. But this was really an update on the current status and stuff that's happened, as recently as Thursday night. And I thought it was important that we discuss it and that we make sure we update the community on it.
yeah, so I think the point here is if the public, the residents want to know what's going on with facility study, it's the Deegan agreement. That's the process. There isn't anything else. So there shouldn't be any, it's a clear signal. This is our direction to the residents. And any other information, it's misinformation, it's whatever.
I want to clarify, we're not necessarily going with Tom Deegan's designs. We're having Tom Deegan present some options for us that we will evaluate. So nothing is.
Exactly, it's what's in the agreement, which is do the space
Provide
plan,
information.
then there's an option for us to do some designs. It's what's in the agreement.
Are we ready to move on with the agenda?
Yeah.
Thanks for that. Item 8, reports of officials and committees. Village president, I guess, I think there's 3 or 4 things I want to speak to. One is we had a really nice recognition event. I think all the trustees were there. We had over 100 people. And it was great to see everyone. And as I mentioned, it was a gorgeous night. Really enjoyed that event again. I'll just mention again, there will be a check-in by the village president after April 1st in terms of the committees and committee structures. And so as trustees and as leaders of those committees, putting some thought into the makeup and what's changing, anticipated vacancies are going to be folks that you're thinking about joining a committees that you might be interested in changing. Those are the discussions that are all going to happen after April 1st. Carol?
Yeah, thank you. With respect to that, so we should all be looking at our committee to see whose appointment is up.
Yep.
And if I recall, the proper thing for people who wish to serve another term is to ask them to fill out the interest form at the village for service on a committee. It would be great if we could all have either that form or a link to the form so that everybody can do a good job at documentation and consistency across that task.
Shabna?
I'm not comfortable with, I mean, I understand that the president nominates and the board confirms, but I am not I think the board, outside the president's role, needs to figure out what that confirmation process is going to look like. I've mentioned it to John for several months now that I don't want to know what committee assignments are happening the day of the board meeting or even the day before. That I don't want to experience what I experienced last year, and I don't want any other trustee or any other committee member to experience that either. So there has to be a process in place where we could each write down the committees we want to serve on or people that we want to recommend, so that when we're coming to a board meeting to figure out that confirmation process, you can come prepared in advance.
That's reasonable. Mark?
Well, the process that we're talking about, that the village president nominates and the board confirms, that's written in the ordinance.
Yep.
And I don't think we're really in it, because that's what the ordinance says. So I don't know we're in a position.
No.
Let me finish saying, okay? Please, let me finish, okay? So I don't think we're really in a position to dictate the president-elect's power, because it's enshrined in the ordinance. Now, I think it makes sense to ask Rocky and John, who are both running for president, to give trustees notice, as much notice as possible. They don't know themselves, right? They don't know which one. So once the election is done, there is that window of time where hopefully the president-elect will reach out, and we can ask as a board that the president-elects reach out to the trustees-elect as early as possible and have these conversations and so on. But
So
okay. That's
what let me clarify.
Yeah.
We need to be able, when our job is to confirm, that has to be a meaningful confirmation process. Unless you just want a rubber stamp, unless you're going to show up, we all show up, and there's one name for each position, and your job is to rubber stamp. If you guys can do that, if that's what we want to do, I will not be doing that. I want to know who else wanted to be in each position and what process was used so that I could decide if I'm going to confirm that position for that person or not. Are we rubber stamps?
the way I see the
Comment in a second,
process.
but go ahead, Mark.
The president-elect is gonna put forward a slate. Okay, then they'll be open to motions. The motion be, just a minute, let me finish. The motion at that point can be confirm the entire slate. Or the motion could be, I want to confirm this, but not that. I mean, the
Sure.
motion can be whatever the motion is. The board will have control at that point and can chart a way forward.
I would suggest something a little bit more clean. It's a messy situation. And second, if you look at the ordinances, then this is all supposed to happen after May 1st. It's not at the April meeting. You're in violation of your ordinances if you do it at the April meeting and not in the May meeting. May 1st is when the new term starts. So there should be time for Rocky or John, just a whole month. And there's got to be a process for us as well. It'll be messy if we're all just going to show up. But is there anybody else here who has an opinion?
Well, I'm about to share one. So since this is the village president's part of the agenda, but I mean, I will say this, that I appreciate it when a trustee, and Shabnam, you've done this, have expressed to me what areas, what committees, what areas they're interested in. So to the extent that other trustees can do that, if I'm elected village president, I'm going to pay attention to that. So that's one. Two, I've already asked, it's a good idea, regardless of who the president is, for each of you to do the things we've talked about in terms of the committees that you're involved in. Three, it is, if I'm lucky enough to continue serving, I hope to front load the process a little bit, more so than I did last year. And fourthly, I didn't know about the May 1st issue. Julie, did you want to speak to that at all?
So the state statute says by April 15th, we have to have the board seated. That's when we seat our new elected officials.
Yeah.
May 1st is when all the other committees start their new terms.
Okay.
But that's the only board meeting we have before May 1st. So whoever is appointed at the April meeting, their terms do indeed start on May 1st, but they have to be appointed. I mean, you can
Prior
make
to
any
that.
date in there. If you want to have a special meeting, you can,
Right.
but they have to be appointed to start on May 1st. So we can't wait until the May meeting
Right.
because we have several meetings that are before that.
I think this work has to be done in those 2 weeks.
It puts a tight schedule
Yeah.
on things, but it's
Has to be
in the
done. Yeah.
statute, so.
All right. I'd like to move on if I could.
Am I misspeaking? I could be misspeaking, but I mean, I was reading that May 1st is when the other committee.
Well, I think it'd be worth investigating and confirming.
Because I've recently read that in preparation for April.
All right, so I had two more things. One is I was contacted by a resident regarding question about the pedestrian bike bridge. It's a campaign issue, and normally I don't take on, campaign issues because it's silly season and we're 2 weeks before an election. But what's being claimed is that that the new ped bridge approaches will have to be redesigned and replaced. They are crumbling now. So I reached out to Brian Berquist, our village engineer, and said, what's the story with, and this was a week or so ago. I reached out to our village engineer, and this is what he wrote back to me. The village has already accepted the bridge as part of the DOT project wrap-up. Okay, so the way it was structured when Dave signed the agreement back in 2021, we split the cost of the bridge. We took on 100% of the maintenance going forward. Okay. So Brian's response to me was the village has already accepted the bridge as part of the DOT project wrap-up. That's one. Two, the DOT structural engineers did observe the cracks shown in the photo and determined that they were normal for this type of deck construction and advised that the bridge was ready for acceptance. Three, the white staining is not salt, but rather chemical that is part of the concrete. It looks salty because of the concrete coloring. He was responding to a post that he saw. And four, a span like this does not always have expansion joints. The spalling on the underside, that first fall was due to incorrectly placed reinforcing steel and was repaired at contractor cost prior to acceptance. In addition, the contractor was forced to provide a deduct to reflect potential future maintenance. Feel free to call with any questions. So I just share that. So whenever anyone raises an issue about, that could impact, our fiduciary, responsibility. I felt it was important that I go right to our village engineer. What's the skinny on this? And since it's being raised publicly, to raise it publicly in this meeting. Bob, you had a quick question?
Well, I just would make a comment that the way you stated this, I had the impression it was like on the sidewalk at the approach, but this is actually over one of the spans. And I had noticed the cracking in there, which as a structural engineer, it didn't look right to me.
Yep.
And so I called Brian, this was months ago, and he gave me basically the same story. It was a mistake by the contractor. They put rebar in that were supposed to be cut off, which forced the cracking rather than allowing some flexibility, and that.
They're using
we have-
epoxy.
Huh?
You saw the epoxy as well. Sorry, I interrupted. Go ahead. Sorry.
So apparently they fixed it cosmetically. It's been cleared. I think Brian thought that it was okay. We're taking this responsibility going forward, and I guess they've given us $20,000 or something as what that'll do for a major repair. I don't know, but
Okay.
anyway, that's what we have going forward, and they figured that there shouldn't be any more problems. But
Appreciate that, Bob. And then anything else you want to add about it at all? Or?
A couple of weeks ago, a resident had brought similar questions to my attention on that, and that's the first that I had heard about the project or any reported issues with this project. I reached out to the city of Madison, and they in turn spoke to the engineers on the project and gave me reassurance that the stuff that was being reported was within the scope of what was an expected potential outcome and was being fixed and attended to. There were no long-term structural concerns related to the project.
that's what I got out of Brian, because it was a mistake in construction. And so hopefully that'll be the case, and we have an extra 20 grand. We can make pedestrian crosswalks.
Yeah, we can, right. All right. Thanks for that. And then lastly, this is Rob's last board meeting. So just, I mean, on behalf of the board, appreciate your thoughtful analysis and so much that you've added to the discussions we've had here. How long have you been on the board? It's
Started in February last year.
yeah, so, a little over a year, and, hoping you could find your way back. We're, hoping you're gonna continue to stay involved. I think there's some committee spots that we should, talk about, moving forward, and of course, we hope that you guys are able to find a home that's gonna work for you in the village. I know that's something that we've talked about, the need for missing middle housing and young professionals and young families finding a way to get in the village at a price point that is affordable. So it's something, I think that's a challenge for us moving forward. But it's great to have you. Thanks for. Thanks. But
We'll limit you to 3 minutes.
yeah, that's right. Stay here. You can talk as much as you want. Yeah. But we really appreciate your service and how much time and effort you put into it. I mean, you've been a joy to work with, and so I'm hoping we have opportunities to do that some more. Thank you again. And that's all I had. Brian?
Nothing super noteworthy to point out in mine, other than perhaps that we have sent back our initial survey data responses to Catalyst, who is the provider of the village website. Their design team is going to be utilizing that data to give us a prelim markup of the new website, which will be released to us to review. Hopefully, if everything goes as planned, towards the end of April, early May, we might have a finalized version that can be released within the village.
Cool.
Great. Good news.
That is big news.
Fingers crossed.
I don't sound very excited about it, Brian. Or is that as excited as you get? Okay.
All right,
Got a question for Brian.
go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
As I recall, the last meeting when we talked about ad hoc policing, we kind of left it with no clue as to what the next steps were. And I'm hoping maybe that's a future agenda item, but get a greater clarity as to what direction. We didn't even describe the process by which this issue would be resolved, right? So I don't know whether you were thinking that was going to just happen in the normal course of negotiations over the union contract and the budgeting and so on, or whether there would be any special track to deal with these issues. So if you want to respond to that now, great. If not, you just put it on the agenda. But it's a big issue, and I just was clear whether it just fell off the cliff or whether what the process was going forward.
Yeah, I received some updates from both John and Carol following the meeting that I was not in or able to attend due to being on vacation. So from my understanding from where that was left off, next steps are hopefully to have further that conversation, identify what direction we would like to go We could certainly bring it back for a board discussion if need be, but I wanted to have an opportunity to speak with both and just kind of identify what the path forward is going to be as we're approaching this union negotiation sometime in the coming probably 3-4
Okay,
months.
yeah, I just was seeking clarity. The ball's in your court.
Yeah.
Not our court.
I've got it.
There you go. That's what I'm looking for. Thank you.
Item 8D, or C, the police chief's monthly report. Hopefully you had a chance to see it. I noted the meet and greet that the department is planning for May 24th from 1 to 3 at the Hayden House, which would be a good opportunity to meet the officers and see the equipment. And I think that's going to be kind of a cool event. So it's on my calendar. Item D, the committee reports. Dietmar.
Yeah, John, if we could just have the floor for 2 minutes.
bet.
Co-Captain Carol and I are hopefully nearing the end of the ad hoc McKenna Park Committee master planning process. There is an 8th regular meeting coming up next week, Tuesday. And the goal is to have a final plan recommendation in our hands for the committee to review and process, and ideally make a recommendation to the board for the regular April 15th meeting. That captures all of that. I know Carol is championing the outreach efforts to our First Nation members, if that's the proper term to use. And you have gained a little bit of traction, or at least a
Yeah,
response.
We did get some feedback from Bad River Band, and they are gonna consider it among themselves and respond. So I'm super interested to hear what they have to say, what they're interested in and concerned about. And if it doesn't line up with our timeline for receiving the master plan, I don't think that's a particular problem, but we have opened a channel, so that's good.
Mark and then
Yeah,
Bob.
I just want to make sure you're aware, are that at the candidate forum, and I don't know whether you attended or listened to it, but the master plan, this project was discussed. And I would say there was a fair amount of confusion and misunderstanding about what the significance of the master plan does. I think some people looked at it and said, oh, the village is going to build this. This is the plan. We're going to go out as soon as the board approves it. Just going to go out and we're going to borrow a bunch of money and we're going to go do this. And so I think there's just confusion. What is a master plan? What does it mean? And I'm not asking you to respond to that now, but I think at the next meeting, maybe you and Carol could kind of focus on it. This is the implications. This is what it means to have a master plan and what it doesn't mean. And just kind of clear the air on that.
It's good feedback. We talk about it at the beginning of every meeting.
Not everybody attends.
I understand. It's
So
made very clear.
you can only do what you can do.
Yep. It's made very clear what the process is and what we are intending to shape, form, and inform, and how that will implement future phases, development of McKenna Park, et cetera. So it's been made very clear at every meeting that we've had at the beginning of it. So if that's the case, please advise those individuals to review the meetings that we've had, all 7 of which, including 2 town halls.
Thanks, Dietmar. Bob.
Just as maybe an update, the Safe Streets for All committee, of course, was approved last meeting. I haven't heard anything. I don't know if Brian has. I think that this project should have been started by now, but given the situation in Washington with the new administration, we were informed that we got the money, but we haven't got the money. The grant was approved, but as of yet, we haven't got the money. So I don't know what that means for the Madison Municipal Planning Organization. I think they're sitting and waiting to hear. And obviously, we're not going to start any work until we have the funds to do that. So I just wanted to give that as an update. so people know what's happening
Thanks, Bob.
or not happening.
Okay, that's it for committees. Item 9, future agenda items. Shabnam, did you say you had something?
For future agenda items.
Yes, we're on it.
So, I would like to work on a project. I can work on it alone. I can work on it on an ad hoc committee. I can work on it with Brian and Julie, but it's about policies. So like number 1, this language here about this is an opportunity for trustees to request an item, but they can't discuss it. There's this is Sharon Evelyn language to prevent the free flow of an exchange of ideas between trustees. There's nothing in statute, there's nothing in the ordinances, there's nothing in policy. This is not a public comment period. We are allowed to have a discussion, but that's like one example. Another example is when we waive all 3 readings of an ordinance, it's a violation of our own ordinances. It was bothering me. I couldn't let it go that we waived all 3 readings of an ordinance and changed, and I had to figure out what to do about it. Section 2 of Ordinance 2.03 says all ordinances shall have 3 readings in at least 2 separate meetings. It's not an ordinance and you got to redo it. I can give you a list of things that bother me, and I want a policies project. I could do it on my own, or I could do it with other people. If you want more examples, I can give you more examples. Like public comment. We used to have public comment before an item was on the agenda, and you could have a conversation, like Tom Deacon joined that conversation. And then it was like, but Dietmar's like, you can't talk. And John's like, yes, you can. There's nothing that says you can't have 2 public comments in a hearing. So it's not to change anything. It's to do the research and bring it to the board and let you guys know what are your options. I think that we operate on misunderstandings of what rules and policies are, and I just want to have a chance to work on it. Do you guys, go ahead.
Yeah,
Uh,
so my
hold on.
suggestion,
Hold on, Mark, 1 second. Julie, do you have a item that you could put in there for future agenda item based on that?
That Shabnam suggested she would like to work on a policies project. I didn't put any of your specifics examples in.
It's like, but you're allowed to have a discussion on it. It's not illegal. It's not, it's an agenda item like any other agenda item. This is Sharon's language.
The open meetings law is very specific. That unless an item is listed on the agenda, you should not be having discussion, because what it does is it prevents the public from knowing that you're going to be discussing it, and it's less transparent. So it's the open meetings law. There's a lot of nuances. But that's the reason behind that. And that's why I brought that up earlier. It's like, guys, we can't discuss it because it's not an agenda item, because it prevents the public from being involved in
The Wisconsin statute says that during public meetings, any public member can bring up any item for discussion. That's what it actually says. We've gone really far. You can limit it if you want, but I wanted that we're doing this consciously and on purpose, not because we're following a false understanding of what the statute is. I want it to be a decision that we want to make. But
Thanks
that's
for that,
what the
Shabnam.
project is.
yeah, my suggestion on this is because we're not lawyers, you're a lawyer.
I love
But the
this
rest
stuff.
of us are not, right? We're not experts in this area. So my suggestion is you get with Brian first, you run these issues by Brian. If Brian needs legal counsel, he'll get legal counsel, and then it can come back to the board. But at that point, we are informed by our village administrator, backed up by counsel as to what we can do, what we can't do. But
Sure.
to ask us to just change things or whatever, I don't know that I'm
No,
empowered to
right.
do that.
So, and that's not what it is. Let me give another example. Like, let's say you have an RFP and Kate's coming in. There's nothing to know on where you start with an RFP or not. It's writing down your institutional knowledge and then bringing it to the board to say, how do you guys feel about this? This is where an RFP starts. Then it goes to this committee, then it goes to the board. Then It's writing down processes so that it's clear.
Bob, I think I saw your hand up.
Well, I guess I was just gonna say that I think we could probably look at ways that we can engage people more in discussion. It bothers me a little bit that people in the audience only can say something for 3 minutes. On the other hand, I understand we don't want to be here till 3 o'clock in the morning because people go on and talk and so I would hope that we could find some ways that we're not breaking protocol when someone has something of substance to add to the discussion. It is frustrating when you see something on the agenda. It hasn't been discussed yet. You walk in and you want to make a comment, you make the comment, but it's like you get no reaction to that comment other than thank you very much. So I think to look at that is a worthwhile endeavor. And maybe that would help people feel that they're getting more of a voice.
Thanks, Bob.
Yeah, I just would leave it to Brian to come up with the wording of an agenda item that covers Shabnam's and Bob's concern. And if you want to obviously talk to Brian in the meantime,
We have some
power
time
to
to
you,
do
resolve as
research,
much as we can.
consult legal Wisconsin municipalities or our legal counsel as necessary.
Yeah, that
So-
would be a good place to
Yeah.
start, see what standard practice is.
Mhm.
Maybe ours is more conservative than the norm, or maybe not.
Any other future agenda items? Okay, motion to adjourn. Thank you, Carol. Thank you, Bob. All those in favor, please say aye or raise your hand. Great to see everyone.
Rob.
Not bad.
Yeah, thank you, Ron.
Better.
An honor to serve you.